So today, we're jumping into something a little different. A confession from a risk management insider who got fed up with a broken system. We're going to explore his journey to fix enterprise risk management, ERM, by using data to turn it from a chore into something actually, well, intelligent and useful.
And right off the bat, the source material just hits you with this. It's so perfect because, let's be honest, it's kind of true, right? Risk management and audit, these are the careers a lot of us just fall into. And that honesty is exactly what makes this whole take so refreshing and so needed.
So who is this person confessing? Well, our guide on this trip is a guy named Alex Kim. And what's so great about his story is that he wasn't always a risk guru. No, he started out as a music major who somehow landed a job as a federal bank examiner. The quote-unquote bad guy with the clipboard. And that outsider perspective, that's what let him see all the cracks in the system that everyone else just accepted as normal.
So after years of living out of a suitcase, eating those sad hotel breakfasts, he finally pivots. He takes an in-house job at a credit union. And that's the key. Moving from being the outside regulator to an insider gave him the space to step back and ask some really hard questions about how risk was actually being managed. And this is the question that changes everything. It's the whole reason for this journey. In a world where things change in a millisecond, why on earth is risk management still stuck using these old, static snapshots? It just doesn't make any sense. And this question, it really sets the stage for everything we're about to tear down and rebuild.
Okay, so let's get right into the heart of the problem. Why is traditional ERM so broken? Well, it turns out the answer has way more to do with psychology and human nature than you'd think. We're talking biases, we're talking bad surveys, and something the author calls the Netflix effect. And this slide, man, it just lays out the disconnect perfectly. On one side, you've got our process. These once-a-year assessments, totally subjective surveys, and some, fuzzy math. And on the other side, you've got reality. Systems changing every week. People coming and going. New threats popping up constantly. The process just can't keep up. It's not even a fair fight.
Now, here's what's so fascinating. The problem isn't that people are lazy or trying to do a bad job. Not at all. It's that the whole system is built on this completely false assumption that we humans are good, rational sensors of risk. And, behavioral economics has spent decades proving that we are definitely not that.
So let's look at the specific biases that just wreck these assessments. First, you've got the availability heuristic. That's where some scary news story from last week makes you think a super rare risk is about to happen tomorrow. Then there's anchoring, where last year's risk rating just gets copied and pasted no matter what's actually changed. Of course, there's good old overconfidence, where literally every single manager thinks their controls are above average, just like every driver on the road. And my personal favorite, the yeah, whatever heuristic. That's when the annual assessment just becomes a mindless chore you click through to get it done, kind of like scrolling through Netflix for an hour and not watching anything.
And check this out. This is a perfect example of how easily our brains get tricked. You ask a manager, how confident are you this control will fail 10% of the time? And they get all nervous. But if you flip it and ask, how confident are you this control works 90% of the time? Suddenly they're feeling great about it. It's the exact same math, but how you frame the question completely changes the answer. It just shows you how unreliable this whole survey thing is. And you know where this leads? It leads to a total breakdown of the process. Because everything is so subjective, it stops being about finding risk and starts being about politics. People negotiate their risk ratings down because nobody wants to have a tough conversation with the board. The goal becomes managing optics, not managing risk. So what's the end result of all this? You get a system that looks good on paper. It feels objective. It has scores and heat maps, but it's incredibly fragile. What it really delivers is what the author calls compliance theater, this big annual show that gives the illusion of security without any of the substance.
All right, enough doom and gloom. We've laid out the problem pretty clearly. Now let's get to the good part, the solution. It's a vision for a future where our controls can actually talk back to us.
So the big idea here is something called dynamic risk management. And honestly, the concept is so simple, but it's also revolutionary. We need to stop asking people for their opinions on how well controls are working. Instead, we need to let the controls show us with live, automated data straight from the source. No more guesswork, just evidence.
So how does this actually work? Well, it's a real-time feedback loop. Step 1, you set up automated tests so your controls are constantly feeding performance data into your risk profile. Step 2, the ERM team stops chasing down surveys and starts analyzing that data for trends, feeding useful insights back to the people who own the controls.
Step 3, internal audit's job gets a whole lot smarter. Instead of checking controls manually, they validate the logic of the automated tests. And finally, the best part, management gets key risk indicators, KRIs, that are based on what's actually happening, not what someone wrote in a survey 6 months ago.
I absolutely love this analogy. The new ERM team isn't the nagging internal police anymore. It's like a Garmin watch for the entire organization. It's quiet, it's constantly monitoring in the background, it stays calibrated, and it only speaks up when something actually spikes and needs attention. It's helpful, not a nuisance.
Okay, so whenever you talk about a big change like this, people immediately start asking, yeah, but what's in it for me? And that's a fair question. Turns out, this new data-driven model isn't just a win for the risk team. It's a massive unlock for literally the entire organization.
Just look at this breakdown. For the ERM teams, you go from chasing stale surveys to having live dashboards. For internal audit, you're not chasing paperwork anymore. You're validating smart, clean logic. For the teams on the front lines, the business teams, no more endless self-assessments. Instead, you get real-time feedback and way fewer fire drills. And for the executives, they finally get what they've always wanted: actual situational awareness with metrics that are tied to reality. Everybody wins.
And this is such an important point. This isn't about digitalization, just buying a fancy new tool to do the same old broken process a little faster. No, this is about true digital transformation. It's about completely rethinking the why and how we manage risk to actually deliver value to the business.
So, as we wrap this up, let's zoom out a little bit, because the end game here is actually much bigger than just having better risk management. It's about building a fundamentally different and better kind of company.
You see, the long-term goal, the real prize, is building an organization that can learn and adapt faster than the world around it is changing. By creating these real-time data loops, you're building in resilience. You're creating an organization that can sense what's coming and respond before it becomes a crisis. You're building a true learning organization.
This shift completely transforms the identity of these core functions. Internal audit goes from being a historical checkup to a forward-looking risk intelligence unit. ERM stops being about surveys and becomes the source of real-time telemetry on the health of the organization. And compliance moves from just being the rule police to actively building stronger capabilities across the business. And it really all comes down to this simple, powerful idea. The world of risk moves in real time. It doesn't wait for your annual assessment cycle, so our ability to manage it can't wait either. So, we'll end with the same provocative question the author leaves us with. Take a hard look at your own organization. Is your risk management process built to just react to yesterday's problems, or is it truly built to learn and adapt for whatever's coming next? It's definitely something worth thinking about.